Hello and welcome to the channel. Today I'm looking at the question, are we intrinsically good? With that, how does this concept relate to our own desire to prove ourselves? The general topic and ideas for this video are coming from the philosophy of Josef Pieper. He's a German Catholic World War II era philosopher whose ideas and writings I've referenced before on this channel. Then the outline for today is I want to start by going into just quick definitions and terms. He makes a distinction between things having value or being valuable and things being good in and of themselves. We're going to look at what he claims the difference there is, and then explore the idea, is our being, like our very existence, good intrinsically? And more than that, if we believe that's the case, what does that mean for us in our lives? So I think that's it for the intro. Let's get into it. So to start with, Pieper makes a distinction between things being useful and things being intrinsically good. And I just think he's really onto something here. He makes the point that our everyday work is usually focused on doing and making. So most of us work a day job so we can pay our bills, right? Both of those are good things, hopefully. Hopefully you work a good, safe, legal day job, and hopefully you use that money well to pay for things that you and those around you maybe really need. Most of what we do, while it may be good, is serving another thing that is probably also good. But he makes a distinction here in saying that our life is not entirely productive. Not everything we do is to serve one of these needs, and that some things are worthwhile in and of themselves. The other topic I covered from this philosopher was on leisure. So I do have a whole video on his philosophy of leisure and what it is in a much deeper sense than like relaxing or taking a break. Really, really interesting. I recommend checking it out, or even just reading his stuff on leisure. He's got some really good books. But in that, he makes a distinction between resting, which is when we take a break so that we can do more work, so it's serving another good end, and leisure, which often is something like the arts, like playing music, making a painting or drawing, or something that's just good. Like you could try and find psychologically, maybe there is some underlying other utilitarian end that it serves, but he says that true leisure doesn't serve another end like that. It's good in and of itself. So then he makes the proposal that our existence is intrinsically good. And that's a strong statement to make, but you can argue that any loving human relationship supports this idea and actually backs it up. I think for most of us, our understanding of like real love, if you really love someone, then not only do you want what's best for them, but you actually believe, you feel in loving them that their existence is good. It's good that they're here. It's good that they are. And you can see that in how like a really loving relationship will let the other person go. Like a mother who really loves their children will let them go off and will be happy and have like joy and solace in knowing that they exist, even if it's somewhere else, right? Because of course we have joy in like having these people with us, but there can be like in real love, it's just an affirmation of the goodness of the person's existence. You're happy that they're off in the world somewhere. Like that's a good thing. So our understanding of loving human relationships seems to support the notion that our existence is good. And it's something that we crave, right? I think it's not only that we want to be loved, it's that we want that affirmation that our existence on this planet is a good thing. And many of us believe, I think, that our existence in and of itself is kind of neutral, right? That if we want to be a good presence on this earth, like if we want our existence to be worthwhile, to be a good thing, we have to prove ourselves. We have to do good things throughout our life to earn the title or to earn the knowledge that our existence is good. And that's kind of an intense, scary way to live, like deep down at the root of who we believe we are. Like, what is our identity? If our identity is up for debate or like needs to be proven in some way, that's kind of intense. And I think a lot of us, without really looking at the question, kind of live in that space of like, yes, I'm a good person. But if I do bad things, then maybe my existence is not a net good in the world, right? That our being good or not is very dependent on how we live. And it's a bold question to ask whether or not, if we make mistakes or do bad things, is our existence still good? It's kind of a radical claim to say that it is still good. But there's an interesting double standard here in that we become what we believe about ourselves, right? Our identity is a very, very powerful force, and who we believe we are will shape who we actually are, who we become. I've just started reading this book, which I know everyone's read. I'm a little late to the game here, but I can see why it's so popular. It's a good read. It's a book all about how to change your habits if you haven't read it, and how to be really productive and like become the person you want to be. But that's what's so interesting is he's making the point from a psychological perspective about how connected the two are, about how the real way to change your habits is to have a concept of what your identity is. Like if you identify as a person who's always late, then that will perpetuate your tendency to continue to be late. He makes the distinction between someone who wants to quit smoking. Someone offers them a cigarette. The first person will say, "No, thanks, I'm trying to quit." Their identity is that they are a smoker. Whereas if you offer it to a second person and they say, "No, thanks, I don't smoke," even though maybe they've decided as of like a couple weeks ago that they don't smoke, their identity has changed. They're no longer a person who smokes according to themselves. They've decided this. So he's making the point that our identity is hugely powerful in shaping our behavior. So if we believe inside, like all the way, that our being on this earth is bad, like if we believe that we are a force for evil, then that will encourage us in every possible sense to be a force for evil in the world, because that's where our identity lies. That's what we feel like we're here to do. So obviously the counter is true too. If we believe that our very existence is good, then we see ourselves as here in order to be a force for good in the world. Like that's what we desire. That's what we want to achieve, whether we're very consciously always thinking of it or not. So even then too, most of us fall in this kind of neutral space of like, well, I believe that I am pretty good. I believe I'm pretty good. All right, then we set out to be a force for pretty good in the world, right? And it's just really interesting. So trying to get a concrete answer for like, are we inherently valuable? If you want to look at it philosophically, is a very deep, strong question. But the question, how would we live differently if we believed we were intrinsically good? Like even when you're having a bad day and you're not putting out any value, right? And if we go back to Pieper's definitions of intrinsically good versus valuable, this means that even on a bad day, like let's say you're sick all week, you have done nothing valuable all week, but your existence, your being home sick, is still a net good in the world. Like just to think of that for a second. That's what he's proposing here. Like it's a very radical proposal. But again, if we put it in the context of a loving relationship, it adds up. Someone out there who loves you will still be glad that you exist, even if you are home being sick. Like they'll just be sorry you're sick, but they're glad you're there, right? There's also some support for this argument in how most of us, I think, respond to people who aren't as valuable. Like they don't put out products in society, right? They're not making money. So like if we look at children or the elderly or the disabled, I think most of us will look at these groups of people and see a great deal of value there, right? We think that these are really beautiful, good people to have in the world. Like we are glad that they exist. Like at our core, most of us value human life and we want other people to be there. We see it as a good. And why is that? If it's not maybe deep down actually true. And that straight up is like the one piece I wanted to get into in this video. It's very simple to state, but I think it's very radical to consider. Because we become what we believe about ourselves, what would it mean to believe thoroughly that our existence, our being is good? Even on an off day, even when we're making mistakes, even if we don't make a lot of money or have a lot of friends, that our existence is still good. And how would that change the way we think about ourselves and the way we live our lives? And does it take off a lot of pressure? Because I think it does for me. If we believe that our existence is good regardless, yeah, what would that mean in our lives? Again, like I said, there are two parts to this video. So this one is a little bit short and punchy, and the other one is kind of exploring where can you go from here in other areas of your life? Or actually, specifically, I think I'm getting into the notion of festivity. And what is a festival actually? And how does it rest on this first principle that our existence is good? So that's what I had for you today. I hope you found it interesting and a little inspiring. If you have comments or like thoughts on this, go ahead and leave them below. I'm always interested to see what people have to say. Thank you so much for watching. If you haven't, please do go ahead and subscribe, and I will see you next time.